What if the most dangerous food you'll ever eat is already in your kitchen? Not something exotic, not a rare poison, not a mistake made in a dirty restaurant, something ordinary, familiar, a food you've eaten dozens, maybe hundreds of times without thinking twice. Because some of the deadliest foods in the world aren't dangerous because they're rare. They're dangerous because they're trusted. They're mass-produced, widely sold, and served to millions of people who assume the risk is low until something goes wrong. Today, we're counting down the 5 deadliest common foods in the world. Not myths, not fear bait, real foods linked to real deaths, real outbreaks, and real medical emergencies. For each one, we'll break down what the food is, how it becomes deadly, the real-world cases behind it, and the one rule that can keep you safe. And you don't want to miss number 1 because it's something millions of people eat without hesitation. And the danger isn't how rare it is, but how normal it feels. Let's begin with number 5. Number 5, raw sprouts, the health food with a dark track record. Raw sprouts don't look like a threat. They look like discipline. They show up when someone is eating clean, on sandwiches ordered by people trying to do better, in salads that feel virtuous, on plates that signal restraint and good choices. Alfalfa, bean sprouts, clover sprouts, tiny green, harmless looking, and that's exactly why they keep hurting people. The danger with raw sprouts doesn't start in the kitchen. It starts long before that, at the seed. Sprout seeds are often contaminated before they're ever planted, from soil, from animal waste, from irrigation water, and once those seeds are placed into warm, wet conditions to sprout, bacteria don't just survive, they explode. The same environment that helps the plant grow creates a perfect incubator for pathogens. Here's the problem. You can't wash that away. Rinsing doesn't fix it. Refrigeration doesn't fix it. Even organic doesn't fix it. Once bacteria like E. coli, Salmonella, or Listeria get inside the sprout as it grows, they become part of the food itself. And because sprouts are meant to be eaten raw, there's no kill step, no heat, no reset. What reaches your plate looks clean but isn't. Over the years, raw sprouts have been linked to outbreak after outbreak across the world. Not small incidents, large-scale outbreaks. Hundreds of people getting sick at once, hospitals filling with patients suffering from severe dehydration, kidney complications, and systemic infections. In some of the worst cases, people died, and the stories are eerily similar. Someone eats a sandwich at lunch, feels fine. A day later, stomach cramps hit, then vomiting, then relentless diarrhea, fever, weakness, confusion. For healthy adults, it can mean days of misery. For children, the elderly, pregnant people, or those with compromised immune systems, it can mean something far worse. The most disturbing part is how invisible the danger is. The sprouts don't smell bad. They don't look slimy. They don't taste off. There's no moment where your instincts kick in and say, "Don't eat this." And sometimes, people don't even realize they ate sprouts at all. They're tucked under lettuce, hidden inside wraps, mixed into dishes without being mentioned. A garnish that quietly becomes the most dangerous thing on the plate. Health agencies have been warning about this food for decades. Some have gone so far as to recommend that vulnerable groups never eat raw sprouts under any circumstances. And yet, they're still widely sold, still served, still associated with healthy living. That disconnect is what earns raw sprouts a place on this list. They're not dangerous because they're rare or extreme. They're dangerous because contamination is hard to control and impossible to see. You can eat them 10 times and be fine, then eat them once more and end up hospitalized. That unpredictability is what makes them deadly. And here's the part that surprises people most. Even the cleanest kitchen habits don't protect you here. You can be meticulous. You can follow every food safety rule. None of it matters if the contamination happened at the seed level. This isn't about fear, it's about understanding trade-offs. Raw sprouts are one of the few foods where the risk consistently outweighs the benefit, especially when the same nutritional value can be gained from cooked alternatives without the danger. So here's the survival rule for number 5. If you're going to eat sprouts, cook them. Heat is the only reliable way to kill the bacteria they commonly carry. And if you're pregnant, elderly, immunocompromised, or serving food to children, skip raw sprouts entirely. No exceptions, because number 5 reveals something uncomfortable. Sometimes the foods that hurt us most aren't indulgent or reckless. They're the ones that make us feel like we're doing everything right. And if that idea makes you uneasy, it should, because the next food on this list isn't marketed as healthy at all. It's something people bring to parties, holidays, and family dinners, assuming the risk is already behind them. It isn't. Number 4, undercooked poultry, the celebration food that keeps hospitals busy. This one shows up when people are relaxed. Holidays, family dinners, backyard cookouts, big trays of food passed around with confidence because it's just chicken. Poultry feels familiar, affordable, normal. It's the food people cook when they're feeding a lot of people and don't want to overthink it. And that's exactly when it becomes dangerous. Chicken and turkey are among the most common sources of serious foodborne illness in the world. Not because they're exotic or poorly regulated, but because they're uniquely good at hiding pathogens and uniquely bad at giving warning signs. Raw poultry is frequently contaminated with bacteria like Salmonella and Campylobacter before it ever reaches a kitchen. This happens during processing, where bacteria from the animal's digestive system can spread to the meat. By the time it's wrapped in plastic and sitting in your fridge, contamination may already be present. The mistake people make is assuming they'll know if something's wrong. They won't. Undercooked poultry doesn't always look raw. It doesn't always smell bad. Juices can run clear while the inside is still unsafe. Texture can feel right. The outside can be browned and beautiful while the center quietly carries bacteria capable of putting someone in the hospital. And poultry isn't forgiving. Unlike some foods where a small exposure might just cause mild discomfort, poultry-related infections can hit hard. Severe diarrhea, high fever, intense abdominal pain, dehydration that lands people in emergency rooms. In vulnerable individuals, children, older adults, pregnant people, those with weakened immune systems, complications can become life-threatening. What makes this especially dangerous in group settings is scale. One undercooked chicken doesn't just affect one person, it affects everyone who ate it. That's why outbreaks often trace back to family events, catered meals, community gatherings, and holiday dinners. One well-meaning cook, one rushed moment, one assumption that it looks done. Then days later, people start calling each other. "Are you sick too? I thought it was food poisoning. I can't stop throwing up." By the time the connection is made, the damage is already done. There's also the cross-contamination problem, the quiet companion to undercooking. Raw poultry juices spread easily. Cutting boards, countertops, hands, towels, utensils. One quick rinse that doesn't actually disinfect. One salad prepped on the same surface. Suddenly, food that was never cooked at all is contaminated. And here's where confidence becomes dangerous. People who cook poultry often do it frequently. They trust their instincts. They rely on color, texture, time. I've done this 100 times, and most of the time they're right, until the one time they're not. Bacteria don't care about experience. Another overlooked factor is partial cooking. Poultry that's browned, then finished later. Grilled chicken pulled off early and rested. Turkey carved before the thickest parts reach safe temperatures. These are small decisions that feel harmless in the moment and catastrophic in hindsight. And the consequences aren't always short-term. Some poultry-related infections can trigger long-lasting complications. Joint pain, autoimmune reactions, nerve disorders, in rare cases, paralysis. A meal that was supposed to bring people together ends up changing someone's health permanently. That's why undercooked poultry earns this spot on the list. Not because people are careless, but because the margin for error is slim, the warning signs are unreliable, and the exposure often affects multiple people at once. So here's the survival rule for this one. Never guess with poultry. Use a thermometer. Chicken and turkey must reach safe internal temperatures in the thickest part. No exceptions. Keep raw poultry separate from everything else. Wash hands, surfaces, and tools thoroughly. And if you're feeding a group, caution matters more than speed, because number 4 teaches a hard lesson. Familiar foods are the ones we rush. Rushed food is where mistakes happen. And number 3 is even worse because it's something people eat after cooking, believing the danger is already gone, when in reality, that's when the clock starts ticking. Number 3, leftover rice. The comfort food that turns on you. Rice is the food people trust when they don't trust anything else. It's what you eat when you're broke, sick, tired, or feeding a lot of people and trying to keep things simple. It's familiar, dependable, and so unthreatening that most people never stop to think about it once it's cooked. That's what makes this one so dangerous. Most stories involving leftover rice start the same way. Someone makes a big pot because it's efficient. Rice stretches meals and saves time. After dinner, the pot is still hot, so it's left on the counter to cool. Nobody's rushing. There's no sense of urgency. It's just rice, and rice has never caused problems before. Hours pass. Life gets in the way. Eventually, the rice is put away, or sometimes it isn't. Either way, nothing looks wrong. The next day, it's reheated until steaming, exactly the way people assume food needs to be handled to be safe. And that's where things quietly go wrong. Rice can carry bacteria that behave differently from what most people expect. Cooking knocks it back, but it doesn't always eliminate it completely. What remains can become active again when cooked rice sits out at room temperature, producing toxins during that forgotten window on the counter while everything still looks and smells normal. The cruel part is that reheating doesn't always fix the problem. Even when the rice is piping hot, the toxins that formed earlier can still be there, so people do what they think is right and still end up sick. When it hits, it's fast and overwhelming. Nausea escalates quickly. Vomiting and diarrhea follow. For most healthy adults, it passes, but dehydration can become serious very quickly, especially for children, older adults, or anyone already run down. In rare cases, the consequences have been catastrophic. There are documented incidents where improperly stored rice and pasta dishes led to severe poisoning that progressed into organ failure. In one well-known case, a young, healthy person ate leftovers that had been left out too long, became violently ill, and died days later. Doctors later traced it back to toxins produced in the food during that period when it was assumed to be harmless. That story still circulates in food safety circles because it's so unsettling. What makes this danger persistent isn't carelessness, it's familiarity. People don't rush rice into the fridge the way they do meat. They don't treat it as time-sensitive. They assume it's forgiving because it always has been. But once rice is cooked, it behaves like a perishable food, not a dry grain. People who avoid problems with leftover rice usually don't do anything extreme. They let it cool quickly instead of leaving it out. They refrigerate it early, not hours later. They reheat it thoroughly once and eat it instead of reheating it again and again. And if a container of rice has been sitting on the counter for most of the day, they don't negotiate with themselves about whether it's probably fine. They throw it away. That small shift, treating cooked rice like something with a clock on it, is what keeps it from becoming a problem. This is why leftover rice earns its place on this list, not because it's exotic or rare, but because it's so ordinary that people forget it can change. And if something this simple can do this much damage when handled casually, the next food is even harder to accept because it's something people eat raw on purpose, convinced that fresh automatically means safe. Number 2. Raw oysters. The luxury food that doesn't care who you are. Raw oysters feel special. They're not everyday food. They're celebration food, date night food, vacation food. The kind of thing people eat slowly, confidently, with lemon and hot sauce, and a sense that they're doing something refined. That feeling of confidence is part of the danger. Most people who get seriously sick from raw oysters didn't think they were taking a risk. They didn't eat something sketchy. They didn't ignore a bad smell. They didn't push their luck at a roadside stand. They were sitting at a nice restaurant, drinking wine, trusting that something served raw and celebrated for centuries must be safe. And most of the time, it is, until it isn't. Oysters are filter feeders. That's their entire job in nature. They pull massive amounts of water through their bodies every day, trapping particles from their environment. That's great for cleaning ecosystems. It's terrible for food safety. Whatever is in the water, bacteria, viruses, pollutants, can end up concentrated inside the oyster. And unlike many other foods, oysters are often eaten raw, which means there's no step that kills what they've collected. Cooking fixes the problem, raw doesn't. One of the most dangerous bacteria associated with raw oysters lives naturally in coastal waters. It doesn't need pollution or sewage to exist. It thrives in warm, salty environments, especially as ocean temperatures rise. That means oysters can be harvested legally, look perfect, taste normal, and still carry something that can kill. When people get sick from raw oysters, it often starts innocently. A few hours later, nausea sets in, then vomiting, diarrhea, fever. For healthy people, it can be miserable but manageable. For others, it's catastrophic. People with liver disease, diabetes, weakened immune systems, or certain chronic conditions can develop bloodstream infections from bacteria found in raw oysters. Once that happens, the decline can be shockingly fast. Fever spikes, blood pressure drops, organs begin to fail. Some patients end up in intensive care within a day. There are documented cases of people eating raw oysters at dinner and dying within 48 hours. And this is where the story turns uncomfortable. Many of those people had no idea they were high risk. They didn't consider themselves sick. They didn't think a food choice could interact with their health that way. They thought the warnings didn't apply to them. Restaurants often include small disclaimers on menus about raw seafood. Most people barely notice them. Others assume they're legal boilerplate. Very few actually stop and think about what increased risk really means. Another layer people don't expect is seasonality. Raw oysters are riskier during warmer months, when bacteria multiply more easily in ocean water. Climate change has made this problem worse, expanding both the geographic range and the season when oysters are more dangerous. Places that rarely had issues decades ago are seeing more cases now, and oysters don't give you clues, they don't smell bad, they don't taste wrong, they don't look suspicious. The most dangerous oyster on the plate looks exactly like the safest one. What makes this earn the number 2 spot isn't frequency alone, it's severity. Raw oysters don't just make people sick, they can kill quickly, quietly, and without warning, especially in people who had no idea they were vulnerable. This is why health officials keep repeating the same message year after year, even though it never seems to stick. If you're going to eat oysters, cooking them changes everything. Heat destroys the bacteria that make raw oysters dangerous. The flavor changes, sure, but so does the risk. People who avoid serious illness from oysters usually don't rely on luck. They know their health status. They avoid raw oysters if they have underlying conditions. They pay attention to season and source. And when in doubt, they choose cooked. Because with oysters, the difference between a memorable meal and a medical emergency often comes down to one decision: raw or not. That's what makes this one so hard to accept. Something that feels indulgent, historic, and trusted can still turn on you, not because it was mishandled, but because it was prepared exactly the way people have always prepared it. And number 1 is even more uncomfortable because it's a food people eat every day, often convinced it's doing them good, while completely missing how often it's been linked to deadly outcomes. Number 1, peanuts, the everyday food that can turn fatal in minutes. Peanuts are everywhere. They're in school lunches, protein bars, sauces, baked goods, snacks at parties, candy bowls at offices, and bowls on coffee tables. They're cheap, filling, familiar, and so common that most people don't even register them as something you should think twice about. For most people, peanuts are just food. For some people, they're a loaded gun. What makes peanuts the deadliest common food in the world isn't how often they hurt people, it's how fast they can kill when they do. A severe peanut allergy doesn't behave like food poisoning. There's no slow build, no warning period where you feel a little off and decide to lie down. When it hits, it hijacks the body immediately. It usually starts small: an itch in the mouth, a tight feeling in the throat, a strange warmth spreading through the chest. People often hesitate at this stage because they don't want to overreact. They tell themselves it's probably nothing, that they've eaten something similar before. Then the body escalates. Airways begin to swell, breathing becomes labored, blood pressure drops, the heart races, then struggles. Oxygen stops, reaching vital organs properly. What started as a snack turns into a medical emergency in minutes. This is anaphylaxis, and it does not negotiate. There are countless real stories that follow the same terrifying arc. A child takes one bite of a cookie at a party. A teenager eats at a restaurant where peanuts were used earlier in the kitchen. An adult tries a new dish while traveling, not realizing peanuts were ground into the sauce. Within minutes, they're fighting for air. What makes this especially dangerous is how easy accidental exposure is. Peanuts don't have to be obvious. They're hidden in desserts, salad dressings, marinades, candies, and foods where no one expects them. Cross-contact in kitchens is common. A cutting board, a shared fryer, a spoon dipped twice, and peanuts don't announce themselves when they're present. There's no smell that gives them away, no taste that screams danger until it's already too late. For someone with a severe allergy, even trace amounts can trigger a full-body reaction. Another layer that makes peanuts so deadly is complacency. People without allergies often underestimate how serious food allergies are. They assume reactions are exaggerated. They think antihistamines are enough. They don't realize that anaphylaxis can progress beyond control faster than emergency services can arrive. Even people with known allergies sometimes hesitate. They don't want to be difficult. They don't want to draw attention. They second-guess symptoms. That hesitation costs time, and time is everything in an allergic reaction. Epinephrine saves lives, but only if it's used quickly. Delaying treatment because you're unsure, embarrassed, or hoping symptoms will pass can turn a survivable reaction into a fatal one. And then there's the most uncomfortable truth of all. Peanut allergies are becoming more common. More children are being diagnosed, more adults are discovering allergies later in life, more environments now have to navigate the risk of exposure. Schools ban peanuts not because they're paranoid, but because the margin for error is razor thin. This is why peanuts earn the #1 spot, not because they harm everyone, but because for the people they harm, the outcome can be immediate, severe, and unforgiving. A single bite, a single mistake, a single assumption that this should be fine, and suddenly nothing is fine. The people who stay safe around peanut allergies usually aren't fearless. They're deliberate. They read labels, they ask questions, they don't gamble with uncertainty, they carry emergency medication and use it the moment something feels wrong, not after it gets worse. That awareness saves lives. Because peanuts don't become deadly through spoilage, mishandling, or bad luck. They become deadly through invisibility and speed. Through the assumption that something so common couldn't possibly be that dangerous, and that's what makes this list end here. The deadliest foods in the world aren't rare delicacies or extreme challenges. They're the ones woven into daily life so tightly that people forget to respect them. And peanuts are the clearest reminder of that truth. And that's the thread connecting all five. The most dangerous foods aren't the ones that scare us. They're the ones we trust without thinking. Now I'm curious, which one surprised you the most? If you found this useful, don't forget to like this video. And if you want more everyday dangers broken down with real stories and real consequences, subscribe to this channel. Make sure you don't miss the next video, because we're exposing another set of things people trust every day, until the moment they shouldn't.